Hello! These are all the battery cells out of the Wheego. What was supposed to happen is that I finish up the project video, edit it, and release it like 3 days ago. But because I'm an idiot, I didn't factor in the amount of time it would take to charge all of these very dead battery cells. And I've been charging them for about a week and I'm about half done. So that's not going to happen. So instead of, the video is not going to happen in that time frame that I originally planned. So instead of just disappearing for 3 weeks while I'm charging batteries, I thought I'd check in with you in this video. And I'm bound to repeat stuff that will be said in the final video, but that's okay. Let me give you a rundown of what the state of these cells is. First of all, they're all dead. The minimum charge voltage of a LiFePO 4 cell, which all of these are, is 2 volts. And none of them were that high. I sorted, after I took the battery cells out of the battery pack from the Wheego, I took a reading of the voltage from each cell, wrote it down on a piece of masking tape, and then sorted them from least charged all the way to most charged. The most charged cell out of the battery pack was at 1.32 volts, which is nowhere near 2, as you might know. And the least charged cell down here is at 0.15 volts. I have low hopes of this one being recoverable. And like I said, I sorted them. And then what I've been doing is trickle charging them. I've been charging these cells in banks of 4 to make a 12-volt battery pack, just to make things easier on myself. And I started out with the top cell just charging it with the battery tender, but for the next bank of 4 cells, I started out trickle charging them with the DC power supply at a whole 1 amp until it got above 8 volts for the whole bank of 4 cells. Then I switched over to the battery tender here. This battery tender claims to be able to deliver 4 amps of charge, but conveniently, and I didn't think I'd ever use this feature, it has a LiFePO 4 setting on here, lithium iron phosphate setting. So I've been using that, and that's why I've wired these cells together in series to make little banks of 12-volt batteries, because this battery tender is expecting a bank of 12-volt batteries. And then I've been letting the battery tender do its thing on each bank of 4 cells until it gets to about 12 volts, and then I've been cutting it off. And then, using a little piece of masking tape and a voltmeter, I've been taking a reading of the voltage right after charge of each cell and writing it down on this little piece of masking tape, just so I know what it was at, so I can see how much voltage drops from it sitting in dead air. And I've been doing that on all of these battery cells, and I'm on the last bank of 4 cells charging it with the battery tender. And when this is done, when it's up to about 12 volts, I'll again cut it off and then go back through and do it all over again. And that's why it's taking so long. First of all, because I'm trickle charging them with the DC power supply to sort of recover the cells without pumping too much charge into them. And 1 amp is probably a little bit too low. I started out with 500 milliamps trying to trickle charge the cells, but that was a little too trickly for me. So I bumped it up to 1 amp, and according to the DC power supply in the last bank, I got a little impatient and pumped it up to 2 amps. Not like that's much. Anyway, after I'm done with this last bank of 4 cells, I'm going to start all over again here at the top, and then let the battery tender charge it until it says it's done. The proper charge cutoff voltage for each cell is 3.65 volts. Since this is charging a 12-volt battery, I don't know what it'll charge it up to, but I'm just going to let it go until it says it's done. And then, again, I'm going to write down the voltage of each cell on a little piece of masking tape, just so I can see how much voltage drops from each cell from the battery just sitting there doing nothing in dead air. And that's how I'm going to determine which battery cells are bad. If one cell drops a substantial amount of voltage just sitting there doing nothing, I'm going to label it as bad. I'm not properly testing the cells, partly because I don't know a good way to do that. I was thinking about hooking up an inverter to this bank of 4 battery cells, to the 12-volt batteries that I'm creating, and then running an inductive load like an air conditioner for 10 minutes and seeing how much voltage drops. And if one cell drops more than the other, I know it's bad. But that requires a lot of just sitting here and doing nothing, and that's 10 minutes for each pack of 4 cells, so there's 9 of them. That's 90 minutes minimum, minus all the setup time in between tests. So I don't want to spend that kind of time just sitting here looking at stuff run. Yeah, so that's why I'm just letting them sit here in dead air and seeing how much voltage drops, because I don't know an automated way to test them. And there is a problem with charging these cells in packs of 4 with the battery tender is that they're not balanced. So a good example is right here. This was a pack of 4 cells that I charged up with the battery tender to about 12 volts, and they're very similar in voltage. Very similar in voltage. So you have 3.09, 3.08, 3.1, and 3.09, but they're not the same. The same goes for all the rest of them. There's a bigger differential over here. We have 3.17, 3.16, 3.17, 3.15. They're not all the same. So that is one downside of using the battery tender to charge them up in banks of 4, but it's a heck of a lot faster than individually charging all 36 cells with the DC power supply. And if I was manually charging each cell to max with the DC power supply, I risk overcharging them because I'd have to sit here and wait for the amperage to drop down. Once it got to 3.65 volts, wait for the amperage drop down and then disconnect it. And if I don't disconnect it, I could overcharge the cells and destroy them more. So I'm doing it with the battery tender just because it's automated and fast. And I don't want to sit out here forever with the DC power supply, just manually charging and monitoring all of these cells. I wouldn't get anything else done. At least with this setup, I'm able to leave the shop and do other things and then just come check on the battery cells periodically. So I'm probably going to spend another week charging battery cells, and that's what I've spent about a week doing already. It's a boring job. It's the most productive way to do nothing, aside from watching grass grow. So that's what I've been doing, and you'll see a lot more information about this in the final project video that'll come out, who knows whenever I get all of these cells done. And I almost guarantee that not all of these cells are going to be good. This one's at 0.15 volts. If this one revives, then I don't know, I can bring back the dead. So that's what's happening here. Would you like to look at some baby poultry? We still got the little Chickems and the little Turkems. Would you like to take a look at them? Because I'd like to show you them. They're adorable and they're flighty now. Oh, and by the way, if you're wondering why I didn't just charge each pack of 4 cells up all the way with the battery tender the first go around, it's because I'm impatient. That's the entire reason. I cut them off at 12 volts because I wanted to move on to the next pack to see how well each of these cells on down the line took a charge. That's the entire reason. No logical reason for me to cut them off at 12 volts and then come back and recharge them to full later. Actually, first, before we look at infantile poultry, here's the battery pack I took out of the Wheego. This thing is very well built, but very clearly fabricated. I mean, there were 18 cells here, lying horizontally, lying down, and there were 18 cells in this back part, vertically. And this piece of plastic was on top to keep the battery cells from shorting out on the underside of all the electronics, because they were all in a plate of aluminum, so the piece of plastic was just separating them. I thought that was interesting. Here it is. I mean, it's a battery pack. Nothing special, except that it's very heavily built in aluminum and all fabricated together. And here's the Wheego itself. Not much different, except it's sitting a lot higher than it did before because it's been relieved of 1,100 pounds of battery in there. Okay, birds, it's your time to shine. Would you like your audience to see you? It's your audience now. They don't care about me. They only care about the little baby birds. By the way, this lid on top is to keep the shop snake out of here. Oh yeah, stretch your wings. Here's Turkem 1. I'm sure, yeah, there we go. I'm sure more chickens will fly out. Sapphire olive egger here. This one's very nimble and light on its feet. We got the Plymouth Blue Rock here. There's another Plymouth Blue Rock. There we go. There's downy feathers flying all over the place. Hi, turkey. Are you a good burb? Yes, you are. I regret to inform you that we have lost one of the 3 turkeys. The one that liked to cuddle. Turned out it liked to cuddle. Hi. Are you going to poop on me? It turned out it liked to cuddle because it was sick. And about 2 days after I made that last video, it died. So that's unfortunate, but these things happen. We have 2 very healthy turkeys left now. Very clumsy, but healthy turkeys. Come on, jump up there. And one of the Chickems thinks it's a turkey. I'm talking about you. The one with 5 toes. Neurotic. Get up here. Okay, perch on my finger then. Yes. Neurotic bird here. They're all starting to feather out. It'll probably be another week, and then we'll put them into the coop with a little hardware cloth separation between the other Chickems so they don't get pecked to death. You're not supposed to get on the floor. Come on. No. Get back over here. Come here. Oh! Did you just have a crash over there? Are you lost? Did you miss? That's electrical conduit. You can't land on that. It's too close to the wall. Here, I gotta pick you up now. No, don't climb under the... No. Here we go. I just said you were sure-footed, and then you go flailing. I'm gonna let them sit here. They like the lid being... Oh, did you fail at flying up there? They like the lid being off because they can stretch their wings. This box is getting too small for them, but it'll only be another week before we can put them outside. Oh, you pooping? Oh, nice poop. All right, see you next time.